Opposed? Motion passes. A second to move over here.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's nice to be back and see everybody again. We do have quite a robust agenda today, so I will keep my comments very brief. I just have a couple of things I want to highlight that we did over the month of September. The first one was we did an all-department staff retreat about 3 weeks ago in September. We did an all-day workshop where we brainstormed 2022 and beyond, and sort of what our work plan is going to be, some process improvement and some changes that we're looking for, and some long-term goals of what we'll be striving for our department in the coming years. It was the first time we had all been together in the same room since March of 2020, so it was really nice to sort of have a day to see people. Commissioners, I do have hope that in the not so distant future we'll be somewhere together in the same room. I promise to bring pastries to that meeting in celebration of everybody getting to see each other again. And for our poor new commissioner who has yet to meet anyone in person, we'll do like a real meet and greet. It would be nice. We'll get there. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. And then my only other item that I wanted to just touch on was I did have a chance and was invited to a city council study session on the 30th of September for a nice hour-long Q&A with the chief examiner. Lots of good questions from city council members. And this will be a regular occurrence. I made it really stress that I'd like to come at least once a quarter for their questions or comments, any concerns, just to keep a strong dialogue with city council so that we're all on the same page and everybody knows what we're doing. Other than that, I don't have anything else to share with the group this morning. We can just go ahead and proceed with our new business. Back to you, Chair.
Agenda item 4A.
All right, agenda item 4A and 4B are both administrative complaints from candidates for the water maintenance supervisor position at the water department.
Sent out a thing months ago saying do not use WebEx. The city is not using WebEx anymore.
If you guys are not speaking, can you please make sure you mute your computer? Thank you. So I'll just go ahead and share the background information that I provided in the packet for y'all. So the first complaint on September 13th, 2021, we opened a promotional recruitment for water maintenance supervisor. A training and experience examination, which is attached in your packet, was developed by civil service staff in collaboration with subject matter experts chosen by both M&P and management. The training and experience examination was sent to candidates on September 30th with a deadline of October 5th for completion. On the afternoon of September 30th, I did receive an email with specific concerns from Mr. Warren Sirianni, a current water service foreperson and candidate for water service maintenance supervisor. From his email, you can very clearly see what his concerns and issues are, and he wanted them brought forth to the commission to discover anything of a discriminatory or presidential nature and to ascertain the validity of test questions. The same is true for the item 4B, the administrative complaint from Mr. Leon Hopkins. He has the same concerns, which were shared in the email that I sent to you as well. Attached, I did include the job spec for the position, water maintenance supervisor, the email chain for both of the complainants, and the training and experience evaluation examination for
You're
your
welcome.
review.
Of course.
At this time, these complaints, they are requesting a formal investigation, that I do a formal investigation of the process. Any questions to start off with?
Kelsey,
Mr. Holt?
Thank you for that summary. Please again, identify for us the process of approval of these T&E exams, who reviews them, and the process for the approval of the exam questions.
These tests are built by a civil service exam and classification analyst, and they work in collaboration with subject matter experts that are chosen, one from management and one from the bargaining unit. So these will work with and built together with labor and management.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Joe Kavanaugh from Local 270. I'm representing both Mr. Siriani and Mr. Hopkins. Could I make a few comments? It looks like
Yes, please.
looks like Scott's waving his arms like crazy, wants to say something. I'll defer to him.
It'll be a quick question, so thank you. You always wonder if the camera's working or not. So just a quick question. So in looking at this particular T&E, how does it compare to what was previously used?
The last two we tested in 2018 and 2016. They're almost exactly the same.
Thank you.
I would have to disagree with the chief examiner. They're not exactly the same. The basis for our complaint today and the request for the investigation is due to the formatting of the test. Let me just say to start with that I'm representing Local 270. The test is a first level supervisor with the City of Spokane, and is therefore represented by M&P as it exists, but the pool of people that are testing for this position are all in Local 270. And as such, when they looked at it, they believed that the test questions were both unreasonable and discriminatory in nature. And that's why we're here today. We are asking for an investigation by staff of the process that was used to put together the T&E and the questions that were specifically involved. Mr. Siriani and Mr. Hopkins have stated in their emails exactly what their concerns are, but if you would like to hear from them, they would be more than happy to explain things. But ultimately, we would like to have staff do an investigation.
Thank you, Joe. Mr. Holt?
Mr. Kavanaugh, Craig Holt here. So you had representation assisting in development of these tests. Is that what?
No.
Kelsey? No, that's not true.
No, we have no involvement in the development of the questions.
Okay, well, being from the private sector, I always ask questions about bargaining units.
Sure.
So Kelsey, when you said that it was developed in coordination with management and the bargaining unit, what does the bargaining unit mean?
This water maintenance supervisor position is represented by M&P bargaining unit.
Okay.
And so the M&P bargaining unit was, they provide a subject matter expert to assist with the test development.
Thank you very much. Again, beg your patience as a novice related to unions.
No problem. Mr. Holt, if I could explain it once again, and it's somewhat difficult to understand even if you've worked here for a number of years. M&P represents the position. 270 has no issue with that, but the pool of people that are testing for this are all Local 270, and they feel that the test questions were not reasonable, nor were they non-discriminatory to them. So that's why we asked to have this investigated by staff, because we have not had any input up to this time.
Thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh, for that clarification. That helps me a lot.
Mr. Hopkins, Mr. Siriani, if you have anything to add?
Oh, I just got my volume fixed. Mr. Hopkins is here in my office with me. And so we missed the first part of this since it went let us hear nor speak until we got that figured out by Tad. Do you have any questions of us since we missed the first part of this?
If I could, Warren, they have had copies of your email that you sent and that that Leon sent concerning your questions about the T&E. At this point, if you'd just like to go over them very quickly for them, we've asked for an investigation by staff and explained why we haven't had input up to this point in the testing process. That's what we spent while you were offline.
Well, I can get a copy of my email and I can go over the points.
Well, I don't know if that's necessary at that point for the commissioners. They've got it in hand. They can read that. And if we can get an investigation agreed to, you and Leon will both have an opportunity to talk with staff personally and explain your positions. Is that not correct, Chief Examiner?
That is correct.
Well, we don't have a problem, I believe, with the T&E being used. It's just the questions that were within the T&E did not seem to be fair for all the people that were applying to the T&E. They seem to be discriminatory in nature, and there's a certain bias that has been used in the past, and it's still reflected within that is not going to be equal for everybody involved who's applying for the position.
And based on that, you're asking for the investigation, correct?
Yes.
That is correct.
Commissioners, any questions for either Warren or Leon or for Mr. Kavanaugh? Commissioners, any questions for me?
Yes, just one more clarification on how the testing questions are developed, if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Ms. Polchak.
Yeah, I'm asking you that. Just one more. I know you clarified, but if you could just sort of do that again.
Sure. The test development process for training and experience evaluations, a civil service examination and classification analyst works in collaboration with a subject matter expert chosen by management and the bargaining unit. They work together to create the testing device. In this case, it was a training and experience evaluation. They all agreed and worked on this together to come up with this testing device. Is that enough, or is there more I can answer for you?
And the document that we have on page 13, the SPN 532 Water Maintenance Supervisor Training and Experience Evaluation, that's the document itself?
Yes, ma'am. This was the training and experience evaluation that was for applicants to complete and return.
Okay, and so it's this particular questioning that the petitioners are quarreling with now, if I understand that correctly.
That is correct.
And in particular, questions 1, 3, 4, and 7, based on Mr. Seriani's email. And so do I have that correct?
That is correct. I did also include on page 20 the job specification for the water maintenance supervisor. I think that there were some complaints that the questions that were asked were not job related. And I wanted to provide the job specification so you could see this is how we build tests, as we work directly from a job spec on what is considered job related.
if the commission, this is Joe Kavanaugh, if the commissioners want any more of a, if you will, a discussion on what our concerns are, we're more than willing to put forth a few of the ideas, but we just didn't want to bog the commission down at this time with a lot of facts until such time as the staff are able to review the concerns. Because outside of this function today, we haven't had any input in any part of the evaluation process to date.
Kelsey, one further question. So Mr. Kavanaugh's provided some great comments, answered my questions thoroughly. Does M&P want to comment? Since this is the M&P bargaining unit?
Absolutely. Ms. Johnson, did you have any opinion or take from the M&P perspective?
Yes, thank you, Chief Examiner, Commissioners. Good morning. My name is Samantha Johnson. I am the current president of M&P, and I really just wanted to give everybody an opportunity to sort of speak their piece before I spoke up on behalf of M&P. I think it is relevant for the Commission to note in this circumstance that there's a reason that this position is represented by a different bargaining unit than those that the current applicants are coming from. And it is relevant to note that this position, to my knowledge, is not structured such that the only applicants would be coming from Local 270. For example, the position is structured to allow external applicants to apply as well. And the T&E would be used for both parties in that circumstance, both people coming from Local 270 and perhaps external hires. It just happened that this time the applicants are all existing city employees, which is just great. Certainly M&P supports employees in filing these sort of complaints. We see no issue in examining the process and ensuring that there are no funky situations arising. But at the same time, I am confident in my knowledge on this position that the criteria that has been established is largely standard for what M&P would use for these sorts of positions. The use of a T&E is very common amongst M&P positions, and for example, the qualifications required in terms of technology and software and those types of things, again, very standard for our types of positions, whereas members of Local 270 might not see those same requirements popping up in their positions, which is exactly why they are represented by a different bargaining unit. So I think perhaps there may just be some wires crossed here. I do not believe that there's an intention on anybody's part to be discriminatory or to limit applicants, but bearing in mind that the experience that these two applicants have had in Local 270 is not going to be the same as the experience they would have in M&P for a reason, right? That's why those positions are represented by two different bargaining units. Nor is it uncommon for a bargaining unit that does not represent a given position to not be included in developing the requirements for that position. For example, M&P would not be involved in developing requirements for Local 270 positions. So we fully support the Commission's review of this matter. If a determination is made that an investigation is appropriate, M&P will support that wholeheartedly. And again, we see absolutely no harm in employees bringing these kinds of complaints forward, but we have every confidence in the Chief Examiner and the Commission's ability to review and make an impartial determination. If there are any questions for M&P, please let me know, but otherwise, we're happy to abide by the Commission's decision in this matter.
Thanks, Samantha. Yes, Scott.
Just a quick comment and then a question. So for Commissioner Holt, and I know that Mr. Kavanaugh will jump in and correct me if I'm incorrect in what I'm about to say, but from my previous experience, for example, if somebody was a police sergeant who wanted to promote to the rank of police lieutenant, those are represented by two different bargaining units. One is the Guild, one is the Lieutenants and Captains Association. It was never the practice to have somebody from the Guild sit in and develop the test for lieutenant, because that particular bargaining unit didn't have standing in that promotional position. So it's one of those things that's nice to have the confidence of the individuals who are taking that promotional or open exam. But in looking at the procedural process, generally that bargaining unit wouldn't be a party to that. So that's my comment. And then kind of leading into my question for Kelsey is, in looking at some of the issues brought by our concerned employees, one of them, and I'll just address it, is the bachelor's degree, the educational requirements. I also noted in there that it said that an equivalent of experience and training could be substituted for that formal degree. And so that kind of led me to my question of, in looking at the questions and regarding the T&E, maybe you could just spend a minute talking about how that's weighted and evaluated.
I can talk in pretty broad terms about sort of scoring plans. Those are generally, well, they're not open for public consumption scoring plans. They are predetermined by the classification analyst and the SMEs on the weighting of things. But what I can, in general terms, what I can say is, you know, there is a scoring plan that's predetermined before anything goes out. And yes, you may get some, you know, points for a bachelor's degree, but there's also points for the equivalency, right? There isn't, it's not just because you have a 4-year degree means that you're going to rise to the top of the list if you've got, you know, the equivalent experience. I can't, it's hard for me to not be able to go into specifics and say, hey, this is worth 2 points or this is worth 5 points, because I can't discuss that matter. But everything is done in advance before there are any candidates, before we know what anyone's qualifications are. And people are given, you know, that's what a training and experience evaluation really is a list of all your training and your experience. So even if you don't have the bachelor's degree, but you've got coursework coming from any type of, you know, college, community college, university, the military, classes you've taken on your own, CPUs you've taken through private, all of that stuff should be put down, and you know, you will be credited for all of that training and experience. Does that sort of answer your question?
It does, and I'm
Okay.
sorry, I wasn't trying to get into specifics, and I appreciate
No, I just
staying within the appropriate boundaries. And I guess really what I was waiting to hear, and I heard you say it, was that all the information that the candidates provide would be evaluated and considered and then scored appropriately in the same manner as everybody else. I hope I paraphrased that right.
absolutely 100%. Yes.
Thank you.
If I could, this is Joe Kavanaugh, if I could address a couple of comments that have been made. One is, we fully respect that it's an M&P position. This position in itself has never been open to the open testing process. In the 40 years I've worked in the department, it's always been promotional from within. That's a concern. What the commissioner said about between the Guild and lieutenants and captains, I understand that. I don't disagree with the process, but the question comes up is, if whatever test is developed, if it has a question of whether it's reasonable and or discriminatory, the individuals have the right to ask the staff to take a look at it. And that's what they're doing.
And this is Warren, there has been times when they have structured the tests that are for local 270 members, where M&P members have been involved in the structure of that test and the formatting and putting out of that test. So for local 270 not to be involved in the structuring of an M&P test, I don't understand why that would be.
And that may be more of a discussion for the investigation that resolves from this meeting.
Just again, I'm sorry to interrupt, but again, when you talk about the test, you're talking about the training and experience evaluation, correct?
Correct. Correct.
It's an evaluation asking questions. It's not actually a yes or no test,
Correct.
right? Okay. And Ms. Johnson, when you develop, your group helps develop these evaluation questions, is it specifically to address the duties that you're expecting the person to be able to fulfill? Is that what they address?
That's the
Broadly,
intent.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the intention of a T&E is to be specifically applicable to the position that is looking to be filled. So T&Es get used very broadly in a variety of M&P positions, but they are customized to the specific position that is looking to be occupied, if that makes sense.
Does. And would it be very difficult to fulfill your duties as a water maintenance supervisor if you had no computer skills?
Yes.
That would be something that would be helpful to know in trying to fill the position. Am I correct?
Yes.
That might be best asked to the people that are testing for it too, as opposed to, with no disrespect, someone that doesn't even work in this department.
Okay, well, who would be best to answer that question then, Mr. Kavanaugh?
I think by the investigation itself, they will talk to both people in management at the water department and labor at the water department, and they can make the determinations based on that.
To my knowledge, this issue that's being raised is addressed by the inclusion of subject matter experts, SMEs.
To some degree.
Well, that's part of the point in having a subject matter expert included, is that they're in a position to offer expert advice on the subject matter.
It doesn't mean they're without bias. That's the problem we have. That's what we're trying to get to in the investigation.
Perhaps you can explain to the commissioners what the perceived biases or prejudices are that are driving this.
Probably about 15 years ago or better, there was a gentleman on staff at Civil Service by the name of Steve Twiggs. He was a senior analyst. They were developing this list or this test at the time. The director of the department, one Frank Triplett at the time, was the subject matter specialist for the test that was going to be done. He and Mr. Twiggs got into a discussion about whether or not certain aspects of the AWWA should be tested for in the T&E. And to the point where Mr. Twiggs said, I will never allow that to happen because it's not a compulsory part of the job for the lower levels. That's changed over the years, and now it's part of the test. And we just want to make sure that the questions that are asked are reflective of what the needs of the department are and are not discriminatory towards the people that I represent.
When we bring up a specific issue, there is not a question on the T&E that asks involvement into AWWA. It does list any involvement in.
Perhaps you could explain or have your clients explain to the commissioners what they perceive to be discriminatory about the T&E questions.
Are we going to get into this right now? I thought that's what the investigation was to do.
Well, before this commissioner votes to expend department resources on an investigation, this particular commissioner would like to know why. That's it. That's all.
I think Warren had his hand raised. Mr. Sirianni, did you have comments that you wanted to make? I'm sorry if we missed you.
I did, but I had already chimed in, but thank you.
Mr. Chairman, it seems to me that looking for a qualified employee in any realm, be it public service or private industry, asking about relevant education, relevant past experience. It seems reasonable that any hiring manager would ask those things. There's a base level of requirements that every employee must meet. And some of those are done by, what is your training? What was your education? What was your experience? And if I heard correctly that this is a training and experience evaluation, I'm all for transparency. However, at this point in time, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing the bias in these questions when experience is being evaluated as much as training is, and training is a critical point for any hiring manager.
And to that point, I do have a question that perhaps Mr. Kavanaugh or Mr. Sirianni or Mr. Hopkins could answer for me. And in that vein of, before I vote to expend resources, I too would like to understand the questions more specifically. And that is, in order to be discriminatory, we really have to identify the class of people that are being discriminated against. And that's where I'm struggling to see who is being discriminated against. What class of people are being discriminated against in this complaint, based on, in your opinion?
Mr. Sirianni, if you'd like to address that.
I think all the members of Local 270 that are applying for the position that haven't been given equal opportunities for involvement in organizations and or training to meet the qualifications of the questions that are being asked on the T&E equally across the board are all being discriminated against.
Thanks. So it's your position that everyone in 270 is being discriminated against when they are asked to list any professional organization they may or may not be affiliated with. That's discriminatory to 270?
It has absolutely zero functioning to do with our job to be a member of the AWWA. I believe there's an understanding that there are 10 positions that are not identified within the department that are paid for by the department to be members of the AWWA, but that is not afforded to every person in the department who wishes to be a member of the AWWA. They would have to expend resources out of their own funds to be a part of the member of the AWWA, which once again has absolutely zero bearing on any position from temp seasonal all the way up to the director to be a part of that organization. So why should that be a requirement for the position that's being applied for?
But I don't see that as the question in the evaluation. The question I'm seeing says, list any professional organizations you belong to. It doesn't say you have to be part of the AWWA, does it?
I believe it says, because I do not have it in front of me, it gives as an example a member of the AWWA, i.e. a secretary of from this time to this time. I believe it states what is your level of involvement in, or have you ever been involved in the AWWA?
Well, the evaluation I'm looking at, question 3, just says, list any professional organizations you belong to and briefly state your status and level of participation. So see anywhere where it says you must be a part of AWA to answer this question. But let me ask you also, or anyone in that matter, for that matter, you speak quite a lot of the AWWA, which according to your email of September 30th is the PNWS-AWWA. I don't actually know what that is, but so it's a two-part question. What is the AWWA? And secondly, are there other professional organizations that members of a water department would be involved with?
The AWWA is the American Water Works Association. This is Leon Hopkins. The PNWS is the Pacific Northwest subsection of the AWWA. If that helps answer your question about that.
Okay, and so it's a professional organization of people involved in waterworks, I gather, right?
It is a professional association that is involved with waterworks. But our certifications actually come through Green River Community College, and that's where most of our education CEUs are generated through. AWWA is an outside organization. I'm not saying it's a bad outside organization or anything else like that, but it's not an organization that we are required to be members of.
Is there an organization that you are required to be a member of?
No, not that I know of.
Are there other professional organizations for waterworks?
Nicole, this is Lauren. There are a number of organizations that pertain to water. Spokane Regional Cross Connection Control, the group, the ABPA, the Evergreen Rural Water Association. Local 270 is a professional organization. This is not limited to any specific organization. Anything that has to do with a professional organization could be listed and scored within that section.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Would there be, so if I were a member of 270 and also a member of one of those other groups, I would get points for that in the evaluation, correct?
Correct. If that was listed, there would be some points for being a member. If you were a sitting or past board member of 270, there's a different level of involvement in that organization, probably more points added towards that.
And you're not required to be a member of Local 270. So why should that be held against you?
Sounds like it's being in your favor to be part of a professional organization because you then get points for your evaluation. So again, going back to my original question of who is the group of people who are being discriminated against with these questions, you indicated it was the people of 270, but being part of 270 actually gives you some points on the evaluation. So I am struggling with that that allegation, to be fair.
If I may, when these first were filed with the commissioner, or excuse me, with the chief examiner, I approached her about this process today, and it was her suggestion based on her discussion, if I could say, with Mr. Piccolo, the attorney involved, to ask for an investigation so that it could be further evaluated without having it devolve into what it is right now, which is we weren't prepared to present today the entirety of our conversation. I have two commissioners, quite honestly, that have said that they don't want to spend the energy or the time or the money to investigate it. And we were told from the start, if you would please put it to the investigation, they'll take a look at things and talk to the various people and come up with a presentation back to the commission. And that's what we had thought was going to happen. And while your questions are good, most all of them come from the aspect of someone that's hiring for someone else. And I appreciate that, but the situation is such that I represent people that are applying for a job, and they had various concerns that we thought we would have staff take a look at.
Very good
I
points,
do.
Mr. Kavanaugh. I would be honestly a little set back if Kelsey would have committed the commission to an investigation prior to the commission hearing about this.
It's not a matter of a commitment, Mr. Holt. It was a matter of it was an option.
Mr. Kavanaugh, thank you very much. However, you just stated that this line of questioning is devolving into investigation, and I would actually say this line of questioning is devolving into an area of background that these commissioners, especially this commissioner, needs in order to even rule on the request for an investigation. And you stated respectfully, Mr. Kavanaugh, that you and Mr. Piccolo and the chief examiner had chatted and agreed that there would be an investigation done. And, or I'm paraphrasing you now, not quoting, we can go back to the report.
Not correctly, but that's okay.
However, I'm looking at the chief examiner in the corner right now, and I'm anticipating her head would shake. No way did I commit the commission.
And I didn't say that she did. What I said was, she said, that's what we should be working towards. And I said, that was fine. That made sense to me because there were a lot of issues within this that we wanted to discuss. So no, I never said that she committed to anything. If I did, I was wrong, but she never did. She said, Mr. Piccolo and she had talked and they thought that perhaps an investigation by staff would be appropriate. Is that more clarified? These web meetings are so wonderful in so many respects. This isn't one of them. So
We love them too.
no, we
And
don't.
Just to
That's fine.
clarify, really this request for an investigation is when an administrative complaint comes in, this is the
Right.
process. So based on Rule 11 of our rules, this is what comes next is an administrative complaint comes in, there's a request to the commission for an investigation. That's
And that's all
it is in your
270 asked for.
hands. Yes, commissioners, it is in your hands to determine whether an investigation should happen or not.
So perhaps for the commissioners' benefit, you can outline what an investigation would entail.
I would do an investigation. I would probably be speaking to the exam and classification analyst that built the test, to both of the subject matter experts that helped assist with this testing, and then I would probably go out to the water department and talk to both of the complainants about their specific concerns. We can certainly speak with the department head at the water department. And, I'm obviously there are some concerns with the membership. And I think that just listening to today of, when people are talking about there's a requirement, the training and experience of it, you've already met the requirements. You met the requirements when you applied for the job. The training and experience evaluation is just that. It is a list of your training and your experience. And what I'm hearing is that this professional membership is problematic for folks. But basically, this is a very standard training and experience evaluation for, as Ms. Johnson from MMP said, training and experience evaluations are used very commonly in MMP positions at the professional level. These are professional level managerial positions. And listing out all of your trainings and your experiences. We're not out. This is normal for us. This is a normal type of testing device for these types of positions. But I think that if there are concerns about process, how these questions were developed, and that there's some claims of bias, that I would need to ask questions and find out if that's really what's happened or not.
Okay, assuming arguendo that you find irregularities, what's the process then?
I would come back to the next commission meeting with some oral findings. And I think, and help me out, Mr. Piccolo, if I'm saying this incorrectly, I can sort of give the presentation and sort of my thoughts on what's, my thoughts. And you guys can either choose to accept that or you can ask for a further written report.
Okay, Mr. Piccolo, if the chief examiner's investigation comes back and finds no irregularities, what are the complainant's options at that point?
Well, first, excuse me. The rules provide that if her investigation resolves the complaints, this matter goes away. But but she does present back to the commission at the completion of her investigation, the results. I believe she can make recommendations as to how to move forward, or she can just present her investigation and leave it at that. If the commission believes there's enough substance to the complaint, you then ask for a written report from her to be used by the commission in any follow-up hearings that you would schedule for these complaints. And those hearings would be conducted more in an appeal format, a more formal hearing atmosphere.
Is that the process regardless of what the chief examiner's findings are? That it's appealable to the commission?
No, the chief examiner presents the results of her investigation. At that point, the commission decides whether or not there is enough substance to justify a written report being filed. Then the commission decides whether or not you want to proceed to a formal hearing.
So ultimately, we're back to exactly the same position that we are this morning in trying to figure out whether to order an investigation. We end up back in this position where the commissioners are having to decide. All we've done is spent time on something.
Well, I think today the question for the commission is there enough substance to the complaint or to the two emails, the complaints, to justify an investigation? If you go to a full hearing, then you are examining the actual T&E and whether or not it should be rejected and sent back to staff, the administration, the bargaining units to revise the T&E based on the results of the investigation and the commission's hearing. So today is a much lower threshold whether or not there is enough substance to the complaints to justify an investigation, to get, to do full investigation, to get any questions answered, to enable the chief examiner to sit down with the involved parties, both labor groups, M&P 270, the subject matter experts, the department to answer those questions.
Well,
and possibly out of that investigation, the questions raised by the members of 270 would be satisfied. They would understand the answers the chief examiner would provide, and that might resolve the complaint, as the rules suggest. If the investigation does not resolve the complaints, then it comes back to the commission for the oral report, at which point the commission may ask for a written report. So it does anticipate that the investigation may resolve this matter to the satisfaction of the complaining parties.
So where in the specifications for the position does it require membership of PNWS, AWWA?
It does not. There is no requirement for that is not a minimum qualification for the position at all. It's a question that's asked on the T&E is list any professional memberships that you are a member of, and you could it's a scoreable question. So whether you were a member of the AWWA, it was used as the example, but you could also be a member of some of the things that Mr. Searle said, or I'm making this up, but like the Society for People Who Love Water, or, I mean, it would be any professional membership. Anything where you're gaining, some knowledge, skills, or abilities is why it's considered as part of the M&P on the training and experience evaluation.
So if membership in that organization is not a requirement according to the notice, why is this an issue?
I think the complainants don't feel that it should even be asked that we shouldn't even be asking about that professional membership as part of the training and experience, as part of their training and experience, because it's not required.
I see. Again, that doesn't really tell the commission why this particular organization is listed as a bone of contention by the complainants.
I think that AWWA I think it may have been used as an example for the test takers of list your professional experience or organizations, and that it could have said, I think we give an example like member of Society of Professional Water People from 1999 to 2005. I think that AWWA may have been the example that they got. But it certainly is not limited to AWWA. You can be a member of any professional organization and be credited for that. Is that helpful?
So the professional organization is not limited to something that is specifically relevant to the position sought. It's just any professional organization. So if you're an accountant and you belong to the national, whatever, I mean, Commissioner Holt can correct me, but you're an accountant, you can put that down there because you're a member of that, or if you're a lawyer, you're a member of the Bar Association. That's not relevant to the water department, but it is a professional organization that you could put down there. So this was everybody's focusing on this one organization, and I was just wondering why.
I think AWWA is probably it's the most known throughout the water department. I think that's probably, I think that there's the AWWA sort of a thing at the water department. And so I can see that when people, when complainants are saying, well, this isn't a requirement. Well, right. It's not, it's also, they all met the minimum quals. They all met the requirements. This is the testing device, which is not the same as meeting the requirements. Yes, Scott.
I was just going to add, I think in having read the briefs that the reason that this particular professional organization has been brought to light by the complainants is that the allegation was that there were certain members within 270 who might be testing for this position for whom the city has paid for their membership. And so there was an issue of, if that is going to be a scoring requirement, that should have been made available to everyone to, level the playing field. And I think that's why the focus on that particular association. Now, having associations listed as part of the T&E, I think is entirely appropriate because it goes to a candidate's preparation for moving up to that next level. And I think it's certainly a fair portion to include in that, to say, what have you done to make yourself a better candidate? So I think that's, in trying to answer why I think these particular complainants are saying that's our issue with this. It's been made available to everybody on an equal basis, no issue, but it seemed to be entirely voluntary rather than mandatory. And so people that chose not to do it feel like maybe they're at a disadvantage.
Thank you, Scott. You were much more eloquent than I was.
Yeah, that's really a very helpful comment, because it almost seems to me the question of paying for this professional organization is really more the issue than the question itself. But moving on from that question, my question then also would be, and to clarify, Mr. Kavanaugh, it's not a question of being lazy or not wanting to expend the energy. Really, it's a question of trying to do to perform my position on this commission to the best of my ability. So I just wanted to clarify that. It's not a question of being lazy or not wanting to take the effort. But the question 7 that asks simply about whether or not you have any experience using different computer systems, how is that discriminatory? If someone could help me with that, understand that part.
If I could, this is Joe Kavanaugh. Within this system at the water department, there are approximately 10 foreman positions over here, which is the group of people that are testing for this position. Not all have equal access to the equipment. Not all have equal access to using the equipment. And the question comes up where training has been given to some people, getting somewhat back to Commissioner Stevens' question about access and payment and everything else. Some of the basic stuff we all understand is part of business, but some of the training has been exclusively given to some people and not others. and they feel that is not a reasonable and fair thing. That's why, truthfully, that's why we wanted to have the chief examiner take a review of this situation, just to ensure that she understood the arguments that were being given. It's not that there's a training and experience. We have them in 270. It's more just the questions and how they were formed. And what Mr. Stevens said about some people have had it paid for and others have not been given the same opportunity, maybe the bone of contention here on that question. So we just want to make it a fairness issue. Is it reasonable? Is it fair?
How is the issue of training on computer systems decided within the department?
Yes.
Good question. That would be Mrs. Gilmore. The realities are such that some positions within our department have the need to learn certain software programs in order to do their jobs. Everyone understands that. Other positions within the department have absolutely no need or use for the same programs. So there's a concern about just across the board giving credit for positions that people may or may not have. The way things work at the water department, people bid into positions, so sometimes they stay there for a fairly lengthy time. And a lot of the work is outside field work with a little bit of computer work. Nobody gets away without it these days. But the software programs that are being listed, some people have access to and others don't. And training is not, for the most part, given. For the most part.
I'm sorry. With making the 270 making the claim, I have to dispute the claim as well. Every foreman, all of our foremen at this facility have the same computer availability. Every foreman has a desk. Every foreman has the same computer on that desk. They all have the same smartphone. They all have the same iPad. Every one of them uses Outlook, Word, Excel. Those are daily function programs used every day by our employees. Every employee also has access to any Precipico training that comes out with all kinds of available training within that. There is not a there's no one that has an exceptional availability to added technology than the rest of the foremen do.
Well, I understand what Mr. Searle's saying. I'd have to say I don't agree. And the reason is that some foremen use some programs extensively and some others use it very limited because they're out in the field a lot, or they're doing more employee related information like time cards and things like that. Everybody should be able to use it for that. But the rest of it, it's a matter of what your job description, or excuse me, what your job duties are and how they are utilized. Did I lose Mr. Sirianni and Mr. Hopkins?
Oh, we're still here. We're listening.
Oh, very good. Could you expand on that a little bit, since you two are foremen? I am not one.
Well, you're gonna have different programs, Mr. Searle is correct that we do have the same computers and we are running the same basic systems, but there are various different programs that we as foremen in the construction end of it do not have access to. And what is the program that they use in here that we don't?
This is Commissioner Gilmore. Late, but listening. I would like to ask this question because it's making me crazy here, as if I wasn't crazy enough over technology this morning. I find it interesting that we say everybody has, that all your supervisors have the ability to have the same computers, they have the same smartphones, but we don't give any training because everybody learns what they need to learn. I got to tell you, I am not a computer geek. I am not an electronics geek. I don't know how many of these individuals are, or if during the course of their employment, do we explain to these individuals, you better learn this, you better learn it on your own because we're not going to teach it to you. Is that how we do it as a city, or do we not find time to give some instruction? Do we not have the people in the city to help instruct those individuals who may use computers in their job? Do we not have the time and the technology to be training our own individuals in these programs? I don't find having a computer sitting in front of you necessarily enticing to learn a program. So somebody's going to have to explain to me why we're not teaching everybody the same.
Commissioner Gilmore, this is Samantha Johnson. I'm the president of M&P, if you didn't catch that part earlier. Just to offer as a point of clarification to your question, I am not aware of and have not heard any examples raised here of situations where employees have requested additional training or sought additional training and not been provided it. I think what's been discussed here is that the working environment for water foreman positions, while perhaps offering equitable access, does not necessarily equate to equitable demand for the use of computer software. So there are some foremen, for example, who might have more cause to use one type of software than another, which is kind of perhaps to be expected depending on the role that foreman is filling within the department. I think what comes into question is it the city's responsibility to be actively training all employees to move up within their progression line, right? These employees have chosen to apply for this position because they felt that they were qualified and interested in it. Presumably there are other foremen at the department who either chose not to apply because they weren't interested in moving up in their progression line, or were perhaps found not to meet the minimum qualifications. You know, from an M&P standpoint, it's very routine and common for us to try and identify employees who have sought that additional training because they do want to move up in their positions, right? We often end up with an employee in Department A who's applying for a position over in Department B. The functional job duties within Department B are perhaps slightly different than Department A, but the employee in Department A has taken the time to, you know, seek out additional training or identify additional software that they could become experienced in, which would make them qualified. And we would want to reward that, of course. If all employees don't have experience in a given software system, then that's going to come out in the course of the T&E, right? Everybody is going to score low on that particular section. So to go from the question of, is it the city's responsibility to train all of these employees to move up in the progression line, to an accusation that not training them is discriminatory, is a little bit concerning to me from an M&P standpoint, because it is common for M&P to use as a part of a T&E, you know, standards with a given software to identify a more qualified applicant.
So you don't see it as a plus for the city to help city employees through the line of progression. If they've been there, they've done the job, they've started out in the trenches, and they've worked their way up, and they have a lot of talent, but they don't know a certain aspect of the job. You don't see that might be the city's role to undertake that. You figure that's totally on their own.
I can say that beyond the water department, just in the city in general, the city does not, in my experience, as routine, offer training to applicants on how to move up in their progression line. It
Oh,
would be
believe
great
me,
if
I
the
know
city
that
did.
very well. If you have
Yes.
listened to me at all since I have been a commissioner, I have made it known that I think we are woefully lax in our training of individuals who could become supervisors and even department heads, but we don't choose to do it that way. And you have just confirmed that for me. Thank you.
Absolutely. I completely agree 100% with what you're saying. And I join you in wishing that the city was better about that.
Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. I just want to bring it back a little bit back to the training and experience evaluation. With regards to the computer skills and experience, we're asking for your level of experience. We're not saying it is a requirement. We're asking, what is your level of computer knowledge? It is right in the job spec for water maintenance supervisor that you have skill in the use of computer systems and software applications relevant to the work performed, which is why the question was being asked. It's not saying you have to meet a minimum, it's asking where you're at.
And would there be a subsequent interview with the applicant after they have completed and submitted the training and experience evaluation?
Once the training and experience evaluations are submitted and then scored by an analyst and then independently scored by another analyst, we create an eligible list, which puts people in rank order. This is an M&P position, promotional position. So they have what's called the rule of three. We would send the top 3 candidates to the department for consideration. They can hire anywhere in that top 3. So they could interview all 3. They could interview just number 1. But that's sort of the process.
Sort of a pre-interview evaluation, really.
Correct.
Okay. And in that interview, would the interviewer be entitled to ask more in-depth questions about their professional organization involvement, about computer skills, questions that are similar to those on the evaluation?
I would assume yes. We don't really have a role in that sort of interview process. That's more of an HR function, but certainly interviewers, the interview panel could ask more specific questions about, use of computer software, professional development, et cetera, et cetera. Yes.
So even if you were to eliminate questions 3, 4, and 7, which seem to be the 3 that are quarreled with by the petitioners here, then those would still be things that would be curious and interesting to know in the final interviewing process anyway.
Correct. Are there any other comments or questions for commissioners or any of our members today?
One last one for me, and I just as a point of clarification, I see in Mr. Hopkins' email, looking at underneath the computer skills and experience paragraphs where he identifies A, B, C, and D, there does seem to be on-the-job training with these programs by the more experienced forepersons that are already employed when the new the new foremen are coming up. So while it doesn't look to be particularly formal, and I don't know that that's unusual because it seems to me in my experience, we are learning on the job computers these days without particularly sitting down and having a classroom experience. But so it does appear to me that all the foremen use all the same software. They all have access to the same hardware. And there is some expectation that software training would be handed down from the more experienced to the less experienced. Is that generally it, Mr. Sorrell?
Yes, we do work with employees when they become into a form and they start using the desktop CityWorks. We help train them on how to complete the functions that they're doing.
I want to just take a moment to ask Ms. Tanya Reese if she has some comments to make I missed her hand being up. Tanya, did you have something that you wanted to share with the commission?
Yeah, I mean, in comments that, there's a lot of people that don't have computer training. I am a supervisor at the water department and I work with my foreman daily on computer skills. I mean, maybe not every day, but to help them learn those things and point them in directions in Percipico of things that would help them when they're creating reports for me and working on spreadsheets and things like that. I mentor them on, progression in the department, on the things that I do every day that they would benefit from learning. This is something I do on a monthly basis with each of my foremen. Sometimes those meetings get canceled due to things coming up, but it is a regularly scheduled thing I do with my foreman in the water department. So I just heard a lot of things being said about the lack of training, and I just wanted to say that, in my area, I do that actively.
Thank you for that. That's very helpful, actually.
This is Lynn Hopkins. I'd like to make a response to that. While Tanya may be working with her foreman and working on spreadsheets and training on those types of programs, that is in the meter shop and the tapping side of the department, on the construction side of the department with repairs and hydrants, valve crew. I can't say that we have that same type of opportunity on this end.
Thanks, Leon. I've got Pam Bergen from HR ready to just make a quick comment about the training opportunities that are available within the organization. Pam?
Yes, good morning, commissioners. Thank you for your time. I just wanted to speak to the available training for all city employees, especially training in the areas of desktop applications across the board. We do have an e-learning platform that is available to all of our employees that covers, thousands of courses that include things like Excel and Outlook and all of those desktop applications that people may need to use in the course of the progression of their career. That is available 24/7. It's available to employees whether they're at work or whether they're at home and just want to do some personal development. It's available on desktop or on their phones. We advertise this application in our weekly tidbits and our quarterly newsletters. And everybody, or most people at the water department, should be familiar with that platform because all of our new hires, all of the 4-persons new hires, go through that platform to do their new employee orientation. So also as HR analysts who support our various departments, certainly if any employee or a group of employees reaches out asking for additional training, we're happy to provide that. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Commissioners, any other questions, comments, concerns that you want to bring up before a vote, or anyone, member of our audience, have anything else that they want to provide to the commission?
I would ask one more question. Since we have people saying that they provide training, is time provided for the individuals who would choose to take that training? I know, for instance, in the departments of the city that require CDLs, commercial driver's licenses, that those are done as they're paid as a city employee to do their testing. Then to take the test, that's paid for by the city. Not their regular driver's license or any other license that they may have, such as for a motorcycle, but certainly for the CDL. So is time made? Is time set aside? Or is it just a kind of catch and see if you can get there when somebody's there to show you something? Do we actually make time to teach some aspects that would help people improve their computer skills as they see it might need in their progression of their job or the job that they may want to aspire to?
Well, I can speak to that broadly as an organization-wide response, which is we want to be nimble and adapt to all the needs of our employees, whatever that might be. So the nice thing about our e-learning platform is that you can kind of pick up and leave off as needed. So if you're taking an hour course, you don't have to take it all in one shot. You can take it 15 minutes increments if that's what works with your schedule. And certainly we coordinate very regularly with groups of employees for various trainings across the organization. We work with supervisors and forepersons to make sure that we do make the time and that we are available not just to assign e-learning, but also to provide at the elbow training as needed or virtual training through WebEx platforms like this is needed. So we definitely try to meet those needs when we get the requests.
Thank you.
So I had, if there are no other comments, I did have one last question, and I apologize, I probably said that already. But now having heard all of this information about these particular questions on the evaluation, does Mr. Seriani and Mr. Hopkins and Mr. Kavanaugh, has any of this information changed your opinion whether or not one of those 4 questions are still discriminatory in your opinion?
This is Mr. Sirianni. Mr. Hopkins had to step out for a moment. I still have questions in my mind as to, and I can't speak for Leon, as to the questions that we brought up that I think that need further discussion in a different setting other than this.
Which 2 are those?
All of the concerns that have been brought up.
So none of the information we heard here today alleviates any of your concerns?
No, it does not.
Earl, with the representation that you've had access to software training?
The access to software training would be dependent upon an individual's time to actually be able to sit behind their desk. The foremen are not always in a position to be able to sit behind a desk during their normal work shift. A lot of their time is spent out in the field managing their crews, or if they're there at their desk, they are busy doing other paperwork that is required of their positions. And they don't necessarily always have time to be able to be engaged in training that might be offered online through the city.
That was what I was trying to get clear. Thank you for clarifying that. Is that time made totally available for training? And is there a computer available? Because I know not every employee has their own computer because their daily job doesn't require it. So how exactly does that work? So thank you for clarifying that for me.
This is Tanya, supervisor at the water department, and we have a computer station over in the meter shop area that has been set up for employee training, and all of my foremen have the opportunity to do any of the Pacifico training that they choose to do during their work hours.
This is Joe Kavanaugh. In responding to Ms. Reese, and I understand the meter shop has certain abilities over there, and she may work on that. The realities are where Mr. Sirianni and Mr. Hopkins work in the construction repair area, it's not the same, and they don't have block time set out where they can just do training. Most of the time they are, how shall I say this, put upon to get their paperwork done that they have to develop every single day. So no, Warren, Leon, I'm not aware of training being set aside for you.
So, and on the,
That's Mr. Sirianni is supposed to respond to me, not Mr. Searle.
well, I have to respond to that as well.
Figured as
ne-
much.
Next week, we have hearing tests scheduled here in the department. Management did not set the foreman's time frame for that hearing test, but the foreman will still take their hearing test during their work hours. They'll rework their schedule and ensure that they have the time to show up and have that test done. It's still within their abilities to take the Pacifico training or any other needed training. All of our CEU required training is done during business hours. It's their place to schedule that within their day. There is nothing that keeps them from being able to sit down and schedule an hour on their calendar for whichever training that they choose to take.
So I'm trying to understand, you're equating the hearing test, which is L&I, to the general training, which I've never seen. You are correct that they are allowed to take certain training classes during the day when scheduled ahead of time. That's not an issue. But what we're talking about here is with the computers to just spend an amount of time to learn programs that they may not use. And I'm not sure I've ever seen Mr. Sirianni or Hopkins ever being able to do that.
As a point of clarification, this is Samantha
Can I
Johnson
have
with
Mr.
M&P again.
Sirianni? Can I have Mr. Sirianni respond to what I just said, please?
To my knowledge, Mr. Sirianni has been out of graded into a vacancy for this position for the last several months. So am I
That's
correctly
not my-
understanding,
that's
Mr.
not my-
Kavanaugh, that
Not my
that
point.
Mr. Sirianni has not had access to computers and software during the time
No.
he's been out of graded?
That wasn't my point at all. I was trying to address Mr. Searle's comments with Mr. Sirianni.
Perhaps
Mr.
Mr. Sirianni could
Sirianni
talk
is
to his
still there.
experience.
I am still here. I'm waiting for everybody else to finish speaking. Can I have your question again, please, Joe, for clarification for everybody?
The question was, in the area that you normally serve downstairs as a hydrant foreman, before you were paid out of grade to work as a supervisor, were you, Mr. Hopkins, availed to be able to spend time to learn the programs that you don't normally utilize?
No.
I was not aware of the opportunities.
Thank you.
Kevin, did you say that they don't normally use? So in other words, you don't have training on computer systems you don't use? That was the question?
What I had said was that within the area downstairs, which is construction, maintenance, valves, hydrants, there's about 6 or 7 foremen down there that don't have the same opportunities that Ms. Reese is talking about in the meter shop. I commend her for giving her people that opportunity, but that is not necessarily extended to the 4 persons that are working downstairs at water doing the field work. And that's what Mr. Sirianni commented to, that no, they're not given the time to do things they're not supposed to be working in. They have certain software that they use considerably, and they're good at that, but the other programs, they're not given the training for, and they're not told that they can block out time to do that. They are given tasks to do during the day, and they are to respond to those. Is that a fair statement, Mr. Sirianni?
Yes.
I was supervisor in Warren's position that he's filling in when Pacifico, or it was Skillsoft training at that time, was brought out, and in several foreman's meetings multiple foreman's meetings and agendas. And brochures were handed out to all of the employees at the department. They've been set out that the computer training is available. I do understand that the different areas have different workloads, different kinds of work. The foremen are in charge of their daily schedules, and it was encouraged that if they need assistance with computers, because we have several people that started in the department, in the field, in the trenches like myself with no computer training, that this is available for that. Daily duties are a struggle, but it was encouraged that people take the time to learn this. When I was supervisor over there years ago, 3 years ago, 2016 or 17. So I do understand what Joe is saying, but I also know that this training has been brought forth to all of the people that are applicable for this test.
I would at this time have to disagree with the statements that were just made. That was never brought forth to us as an opportunity to participate in that when she was our direct supervisor.
Okay, folks, I think we're really getting down into the weeds and off the path of a request for an investigation here. So let's sort of bring it back in. And commissioners, do you have any questions that you need answered before we move to vote on whether we should do an investigation or not? I think a lot of these concerns are coming up that are not meant for this moment. So
I understand your concern there, but I do think it bounces back to the same thing that we're talking about, and that is the fairness factor in how we provide training, period. Not everybody's schedules are the same. Therefore, you may need to do that same training 3 or 4 times. So I think there needs to be some process put forth in departments that are going to require computer work or any other specialized work, that training be afforded to every employee who wants to take it, and therefore you're going to have to do more than 1 or 2 of them on a certain day or a certain time. We're going to have to set some new standards, I think, so that everybody gets a chance to do the trainings they need to do. So I think we are kind of bouncing back. Maybe it's an unholy tennis match we're playing here, but ultimately we're still in the same court. And that is, we need to find a way that everybody knows they've got a date, a day, or a time that they can take the training they want to take. That it isn't just this one day at this one time when their particular workload doesn't work for them to take it, or it's going to be a real hassle, or they're going to have to get a lot of permission to do it. So I think we just need to make the trainings easier, more available, and make sure that everybody knows about them. And if they can't get to the first one, they can get to the second one or the third one.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. I was just going to kind of bring this full circle back to what Kelsey was just saying, and I appreciate all the information that's been brought forward here today, but really the question was whether or not we wanted to instruct the commission to do an investigation into this. And so kind of bringing us full back, I think it's probably time to entertain a motion if there is one. We've provided a lot of information. I think Commissioner Palmerton's question was excellent, and that she asked, the 2 complainants, did the information that was brought to light today change your opinions, feelings toward any unintended bias that they believe may have been included in this testing mechanism? And the answer was no, it did not. So having said that, I could make the motion, or I can surrender that to one of our other commissioners.
I would certainly support that motion.
Oh, right. Well, I'll make the motion then. And I think, you know, going back at what I've heard today here, and I'll just throw a comment out first real quick before I make the motion, is that looking at the benchmark of discrimination, I did not hear any evidence today that made me believe that there was anything discriminatory about the testing mechanism. However, our primary mission as civil service, the Civil Service Commission, is to ensure that an unbiased, merit-based system for hiring, promotion, and retention is maintained at all times. And so, given that spirit of what we do, I would make a motion that we instruct civil service to investigate this particular testing mechanism.
I second that motion.
You're muted, Mark.
Is anybody telling Mark he's muted?
We're trying.
Reading his lips, I think he's saying, "Can you hear me now?"
Reading his lips, I thought he asked if there's any further discussion, but
Is there any further discussion? I'm interpreting for him.
Call the question. All in favor of the motion?
All in favor of the motion?
aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
I oppose.
We have two off, 2 for, and 2 against.
Okay, big man.
That's why you vote fast.
See.
So somebody
Yes.
needs to tell me what the process is when we're at a tie.
We are at a
Does that
tie.
mean that
Mark
the
is
motion
Mark
fails?
is, nope, Mark is the deciding vote, and Mark just voted to deny the motion.
Okay, thank you.
So the motion fails for both new business item 4A for Mr. Sirianni and 4B for Mr. Leon Hopkins. The vote is to deny an investigation. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, everybody, for
We will move on
participating.
Thank you, everyone. Moving on to new business item 4C, resolution classification actions. We've got, let me get there real quick. Staff are bringing forward 3 classifications for retitling and significant revisions. City Council has adopted an ordinance to change the name of the Probation Department to the Community Justice Services Department as of November 3rd, 2021. The department itself is completing a transition to a new model of service from a quasi-law enforcement model to a more social work-based model. To align with the new model, Civil Service rebuilt and retitled 3 existing job classifications. SPN 029, Probation Service Specialists, retitled to 029, Community Justice Specialist. SPN 954, Probation Officer 1, retitled to 954, Community Justice Counselor. And SPN 955, Probation Officer 2, moving to 955, Senior Community Justice Counselor. The revised class specifications have concurrence of management and Local 270, and we recommend adoption of these.
Given concurrence of management and bargaining and civil service, I motion approval of the classification change.
Second.
Kelsey, we can't hear you now.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Oh. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. We've got agenda item 4D. Yes, the packet. Which is adoption of our 2022 budget. The 2022 budget is ready for review and adoption. Additions and funding to include this year, 1 new personnel analyst 1, a significant increase in advertising and recruiting budget, and an increase for staff training. With these new costs, we are adding approximately $133,000 to our budget, bringing total expenses for 2022 to $1.564449, which is approximately 0.75 of the total classified payroll for 2020, well within our 0.5 to 1% that we are allowed to take per the city charter. Any questions or comments? Any discussion? Do we have a motion to adopt this 2022 budget?
I'll move to adopt the 2022 budget.
Second.
Further
Any
discussion?
further discussion on the motion? All in favor of adopting this 2022 budget?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, I don't hear any opposition.
Oh, motion passes. Thank you all. Next item is item 4E, 2022 rule review, and no action required on your part, commissioners. So this is just for your information. For our newer members, Ms. Palmerton, or for any member who has not been with us for 5 years, the last time we did rule review is done every 5 years. Staff, management, members of our bargaining units gather to review the civil service rules. We really were meant to be starting this process this year, but COVID. So we're kicking off January of 2022. January 13th will be our kickoff meeting. And we have spent the last 6 months planning and developing methods for an organized and informative rule review process. And I have attached some basic documents that we have been working on: FAQ sheets, ground rules for our meetings. I really want this to stay, nice and professional. So we're going to have an agenda for every meeting. We've also calendared out the whole year for when our meetings will be. And we really are planning for rule review to take most of the year. And I certainly will be bringing, sort of updates to commission meetings on a monthly basis to sort of see where we're at, and the good dialogue and discussion that I'm sure we'll be having with our stakeholders. And once rule review finishes, closer to the end of 2022, we will have a nice big presentation for you all at the beginning of 2023 to talk about some of the things that were brought forth and voted on, recommendations for you as commissioners to take. I do just want to say, as a side note, I have, perhaps it's a lofty goal, but a goal nonetheless, of making our rules legible and readable for everyone who works under them. They're not easy to read. I'm sure you're all well aware of that. I mean, I've been carrying around, I have to read this book every single day. And for us to have any assumption that all of our employees understand what Rule 4, Section 5A means is difficult. And so I really do want to, even if we make no other changes, but making it legible for people, that's a goal of mine. And I'm sure that I'm sure people will want some things to change. So at any rate, this was just for your knowledge to know that it's coming, it's happening, and sort of we have a plan. And we're going to be very organized and methodical with how we proceed through rule review this next year. Any questions, comments, concerns with the process or what I'm
So you're
shown?
anticipating that this rule review is going to be, are you anticipating this is not going to be electronically done, but rather live?
I have high hopes, Commissioner Gilmore, that we will be in person. But I think we'll probably in reality be some kind of a hybrid. We'll probably have some people in a room and we'll probably have some people on a video screen to make sure that people have access and can, that we are allowing for all the types of ways for people to participate.
I'm glad you're looking into all those aspects. Thank you. I just remembered the last one, and I know we had a lot of, including the handbook was up on a projector, which since we went through it pretty much line by line, that was helpful. And I suppose that can be done electronically too, but I'm just thinking of the time that this thing took, as I recall.
Yeah, it's not a small undertaking. It will be,
No.
it's going to be a thing and it will take all year. All right, agenda item 4F, which is Civil Service Commission appointee. The fifth chair of our Civil Service Commission, currently held by Commissioner Scott Stevens, is due for reappointment at the end of this year. So commissioners, you will need to nominate an appointee and vote to fill the fifth chair before the end of the year. I think as from last meeting, we're all aware that Mr. Stevens is interested in staying on. So
I nominate Scott Stevens to fill the fifth chair.
I second that.
any discussions before we put it out for a vote? Now's your chance, people.
Still can't hear.
Oh, Ms. Palmerson, did you have a comment real quick? I'm sorry.
No, I see somebody, I think Mr. Lindsay's trying to say something, but I couldn't hear him. But it looked like it was perhaps a witty retort.
I think it was, he wants Scott to be the next chair. Just kidding.
This was your opportunity. I am the Mr. Lindsay whisperer today. I am his microphone. He said this was your last chance for any discussion before we vote. So if there's no comments, all in favor of
Aye.
reappointing Mr. Stevens?
Aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Stevens. We were
Thank you.
thrilled to have you for another 4 years.
Thank you. It's been a privilege serving the city and working with this distinguished panel.
With a possible exception or two, but we'll take it.
Well, that was mean if you met me, Judith, so.
No.
Thank you.
On that note, we'll move on to our final item of new business, 4G, the chair and vice chair appointments. So the chair and vice chair for Civil Service Commission are due for reappointment at the end of 2021. We are just ending a 2-year term for Commissioner Lindsay as our chair. and Commissioner Gilmore as our vice chair. Is there any discussion or any nominations that you guys want to talk about beforehand?
I believe that at our last meeting, Mr. Lindsay, Commissioner Lindsay, Chairman Lindsay, was generously agreeing to serve an additional term as our chairperson. And so I'm going to make a party ticket nomination of retaining Mr. Lindsay as our chair and Ms. Gilmore as our vice chair.
I will second that.
Any further discussion before we vote? All right, all those in favor of Commissioner Lindsay and Commissioner Gilmore retaining their positions? Say aye.
Aye.
I'm voting for Commissioner Lindsay, yes, as chair. I will accept humbly the party ticket.
Well, the motion passes unanimously. Congratulations to you both, commissioners. We're thrilled to have you in these positions for another 2-year term. Is there any other business that needs to be discussed before we adjourn?
I would like to suggest that at least on one of the papers that come in our packet, that we have the phone numbers to this in the event that we have a computer meltdown, which I did this morning. Actually, you're going to hear my dog barking any minute because my computer geek is on his way. But I had no numbers in front of me, nor could I find any anywhere that got me the number that I needed to dial into this. And so it would just be helpful, I think, on our agendas if every link and every phone number that we might need, since we're doing this electronically for a while yet. I know we've only got the November meeting, and hopefully January the sun's going to shine again and we're all going to be downtown. But not believing that fully right now, I would like to have those on a piece of paper that we have in front of us so that it doesn't take any commissioner an undue amount of stress to get into a meeting when electronically everything doesn't go quite right in the morning. Thank you.
Great suggestion, Judith. We'll make sure it happens for the next commission meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to say, I think that is a great suggestion. Today was the day for technical difficulties because I tried to log into the meeting an hour early because I was still on Montana time. So I don't know how we fix that, but it must be the day for technical glitches.
It was a day, but yes, Judith, very good suggestion. Any other business?
I motion adjournment.
Second.
All in
Well,
favor?
apparently, if any of you are on Comcast, you may run into exactly what I've ran into this morning. Apparently, they decided to do a review and compacting of emails. So you may not be able to get into your email on certain computers today. So I'm having to have someone else come out here to fix this because I have yet another one of I have 2 more of these meetings yet today. So hopefully they're going to be a little easier. I'm just kind of venting. Sorry. But I would appreciate that information because I could have just called in and nobody would have had to know my frustrations.
Thank you, Judith. And there was a motion and a second for a motion to adjourn the meeting. All in favor of finishing this meeting?
Aye.
Thank you, commissioners, for your service today. It was a long slog, but very appreciated. And we'll see you all next month.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care.